Hello and welcome to the first reaction of the new season, as we look back to Celtic taking on Yokohama in Japan as part of the Japanese pre-season tour in what was a really interesting and at times enjoyable game of football, finishing Yokohama 6, Celtic 4. I'm your host, Christopher Gallagher, and today I am joined by Barry Gallagher. Hello Barry, how are you, sir?
Very well, thanks. Delighted to be here. And as you said, the first reaction of the season is always a momentous occasion. And it was a pulsating game. Lots to talk about. I think my notes are probably the most detailed notes I've ever taken. So, yeah, plenty to get our teeth into. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, it's always interesting. Friendlies are such a hard thing to gauge. But I was thinking about this as the game was kicking off. With the exception of the two behind closed doors games, which were more bounce games than anything, this is our first game since the Scottish Cup final in, the first week in June. So, there's a lot to kind of put into context from that point of view. Barry, Celtic in pre-season, when it comes to results, usually the theory goes, we have a bad pre-season in terms of results, we have a good season going into it. Do you buy into that? What's your feeling on pre-season friendlies and coming into this game?
It's funny you say that because I think that's something you always console yourself with, isn't it? When you come off the wrong side of a defeat, and yeah, traditionally that does tend to be the case because I think one of our most successful pre-seasons was when we won the Wembley Cup under Mowbray, and we all know how that panned out. But I think even going back to the Lisbon season, I think we went to New York, didn't we? The summer before that, I think we were in a hiding to maybe Arsenal. I think so. Yeah, but. Yeah, it's hard. I think just the nature of being a Celtic fan, it's never nice when you lose, but I think you've got to put it in context, and it's all about fitness. And as we'll come on to, I think that was probably the perfect team that we could have played against today, because it's everything that you kind of want for our brand of football. But I'm sure we'll come on to that. So, no, it's always good to see Celtic, but I don't tend to worry too much about the results. It's more about minutes in the legs, as Alan would say.
Yes, first minutes in the legs of the season. Barry, ding, ding, ding. I really enjoyed, just if nothing else, maybe for the people who haven't seen the game, what did you enjoy? I really enjoyed this game. It felt really competitive. Yokohama are, through their seat there. I think they're about halfway through their season. They are fully up to speed in regards to, match fitness and sharpness, which at points you could see the difference. But really enjoyable game of football, Barry.
Yeah, definitely. And as you made the point, it's the first game that we've seen since the Scottish Cup final. So just delighted to see Celtic back. But in terms of the standard, I thought it was top class. Good atmosphere in the stadium as well. You could hear the Celtic fans quite loudly. The Japanese fans were loud as well. So, no, a really good spectacle. And it reminded me of the 2002 World Cup. See that kind of up early, I know it's not that early, but up early, the football on, and just, fond memories, so I say. So, no, it was really a really good morning. And, yeah, I think it's been a great run out, and lots of, you could see the content before the game with the sort of media and fan opportunities with the new kits and stuff. So far so good. Obviously the result, we would have preferred a better result, but it seems to be that the conditions have been perfect for us. So no, all in all, a good morning. Yeah,
we'll break down some of the goals and some of the performances, but in classic friendly fashion, there was a raft of changes which kind of broke the game up a little bit. But Celtic lined up, and as soon as I seen this tweet, I thought, oh, fuck, we're back to the days of naming players in wild.
I'll
try to figure out the team. But I'll read it out, the team as they kind of lined up as opposed to the tweet itself. But Joe Hart was in goals. We had Iwata at right back, Greg Taylor at left back, Carol Starfeld and Kobayashi at centre half. In midfield we had Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly and Hitati, and up front we had Daisen Maeda was through the middle with Haksabanovic on the left hand side, which was good to see, and Abada on the right hand side. Strong team, Barry. I think we were trying to kind of dissect how the back line would be. Would Hitati drop into full back? Would Iwata, that was the two names, but it turned out to be Iwata. What did you make of that team when you kind of saw it come up for you this morning?
Yeah, a pretty strong team. The first thing that jumped out to me was that we had all of our Japanese players, bar my favourite one, Kyogo. No, but no, I was a bit smug to some of my pals and also in a group chat because I'd kind of floated the idea, I think the end of last week, that maybe Iwata could fill in at right back in the absence of Johnson and Ralston. So quite happy to see that. But no, I was pretty happy with the team. I think that's our strongest midfield. And I was interested to see how Dyson would do as we'll come on to through the middle. Because Rodgers had made the point when he signed his new deal about wanting more goals, and well, he's certainly ticked that bit off so far. And at the point you made there, I was looking forward to seeing Haksabanovic in his sort of natural left-hand side, and just delighted to see Celtic back. It's always anticipate the first sort of lineup of pre-season, and it was a pretty strong team. So no, it was kind of whet the appetite for what was to come.
I said to Claire at least 3 times through the game. It looks better on. It looks better on than hanging in the shop. Does it look better on? Am I wildly trying to convince myself? Because we're all going to buy this thing. So like, does it look better on?
No, I think it did. I think, but then it's that thing, isn't it? When you're looking at toned athletes. And then when you put it on, you're like, "Oh, I don't look like that, do I?"
No, absolutely no chance.
But no, I think it looked far better than it does, which probably wouldn't be hard. But I was the same as you. I think I'm trying hard to convince myself.
Yeah. Let's kind of kick on to the. In fact, before we kick on to the game, I wanted to name the bench as well, just to let people know who was on the bench. The bench had Scott Bain and Scott Bain and Siegrist as the goalkeepers available. Then we had Scales, Kyogo, Turnbull, Bernaby, Lawal, Vata, Kelly, Forrest, Summers, Welsh, and McPherson. Lawal and Vata are the only two that didn't actually get on, which is a little bit maybe surprising. Specifically Vata, I would say more than Lawal. Just on that, were you a bit surprised that Vata didn't get an opportunity to come on?
Yeah, I was, because by all accounts he did quite well in the bounce games in Portugal, and I think we're going to, as we will do, I think we're going to see a lot of rotation of the wide players. So yeah, interesting. Maybe I don't know if he maybe done all, or he's maybe carrying something. So yeah, that did surprise me. And Lawal's more understandable, isn't it? Because Welsh and Scales are obviously more senior pros. So yeah, Vata's the one that did sort of made me wonder why.
Yeah, I felt the same way as well. Let's talk about the game itself. I mean, just frenetic, fast paced, and it was as if at points both teams were breaking really, really quickly. I thought Celtic broke really well, specifically in the first sort of 25-30 minutes. Yokohama play a really, really high line, but they press really highly as well. You mentioned this is a good kind of exercise. To me, this felt like a really good exercise for what potentially we'll face in the Champions League. I'm not necessarily comparing that level of quality, but in terms of how they set up, and players were under pressure, and we were pressed pretty early on, Barry.
Definitely, yeah. It's the kind of thing you would dream of the kind of test we would get it domestically, because it's sort of the antithesis of what we do get with men behind the ball, and they were very fit. They were basically doing to us what we do to most other teams domestically. So it was a real test. It was a good test to see how our backline could sort of handle being kind of pressed up upon that high up the pitch. And you just mentioned how frenetic it was. It was almost as if at points you were watching the game on like 1.5 speed, I thought, because it was just end to end. And as I say, you couldn't have asked for a better sort of. That's sort of the identical team. If you want to play a sort of pressing brand of football that we do, that's the kind of test that you want. So, yeah, happy with the opposition, and from pretty early on there was action straight away. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there was 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. Yokohama strike, then obviously we equalise. We'll talk about Yokohama's goal first. It came in within the first 3 minutes. There was a ball through. They were kind of had their kind of play on our their right hand side or left hand side, and we can talk about our left hand side because I got some notes on it. But there was a ball put in, and it was kind of crossed into the box. Starfelt deals with it pretty well, kind of blocks the striker kind of, and gets his body in between the player and the ball. It drops to Joe Hart. It seems like it's a very, very simple take, Barry. This is 3 minutes into what you could consider the new season, and it's a Joe Hart howler, and the ball he can't grab it, and the striker scores. Not a great start for Joe Hart.
Definitely not. I've got in my notes, weak as piss, because he makes a fumble with his hands, and then his legs are all kind of caught as well. It doesn't look good at all. And it's kind of sod's law, isn't it? Like we've been saying all summer that one of our key positions, or potentially the key position that we're all looking to strengthen, is a goalkeeper, and not great for him, and a kind of nightmare start for his first few minutes under the new manager. But it looked awful in the eye, and I don't know what he was doing. Maybe caught cold because it is so early into the pre-season, but not a good look for him.
And it is one of those things where all those questions that we've had about goalkeepers and about number one, that first it's not competitive obviously, but that first friendly, that first witnessing of the Celtic team, 3 minutes, it's not going to do his case any good, is it?
No, and that's Rodgers' first reference point of, can I trust, I know it's a friendly, but can I trust my goalkeeper? And it's not a good addition for cementing that number one spot. So I don't know. I don't know how these things work, but maybe it would be right that maybe accelerates the search for a new goalkeeper. And not to jump too far ahead, I don't think Siegrist covered himself in glory too much either. I know he didn't have any errors as bad as that, but yeah, it hasn't changed my opinion, and if anything, it's made me more strong in my opinion that we do need a new number one. I
don't want to jump ahead either, but does Siegrist know how to dive? Has he ever? Does he know what a goalkeeper does? He's supposed to keep the ball out the thing, and maybe that's unfair, but we'll get to it. Celtic equalise really quickly, 5 minutes in, and after this. I just want to chat about Hatate. Hatate wins the ball. Uses his body so incredibly well to hold on to the ball, and he releases this pass through to Abada, completely splits the entire midfield and defence of Yokohama, which puts Abada through. Abada's in acres of space, and this is the thing, Abada in acres of space isn't always a good thing.
No.
But he controls the ball, he looks up, he's focused, and instead of taking a shot, he rolls the ball over to our good friend Maeda, and Maeda finishes and makes it one each. It's 5 minutes in, an outrageously good goal, Barry. Friendly or not, it's just really well worked.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think it comes back to the point you made about us on the break. And I think that's what happens when there's a team that do press that high. You do get opportunities to kind of hurt them. And Hatate was strong as an ox. And I kind of felt like, obviously, Dyson will get all the sort of plaudits as we go on through the rest of this half, but Rio kind of looked like he was on a mission to show, like, look how much I've improved since I've left Japan. He was kind of strutting about like a peacock, which I love to see.
Yeah.
That pass was incredible. And you say Abada, some of the criticism that we've had of him when he has time to think, the amount of times he would get in that position and balloon the cross over the bar or take it himself, but really composed, and Dyson, with the finish, who at first I thought he'd missed it. I thought, Jesus, he's put that over the bar. But one of the things that we spoke about the strengths of Rodgers was improving players, and particularly wide players. And on the sort of 60 minutes or so we saw from Abada, he looked far more composed than he has in the past. So can only be a good thing, I think, with the wingers working under Rodgers, because that seems to be one of his strengths. So, no, delighted. And as you say, friendly or no friendly, that was one of the goals where you kind of cheered out loud because it was that good. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, just on Abada, I've given him a lot of criticism, we all have, because, some of the frustrations. But, the difference between Ange Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers is I think that he will get specific instructions in the way he might not have under Postecoglou. I think Postecoglou is more about, set out the tone of what we want to do, but give the players, the kind of skill sets to do it. Whereas I think with Rodgers, it'll be more, when you're in this position, do this. When you're in this situation, do that. More one-on-one coaching. And I think that might already be coming into play, because he looked, if that was last season, and you just feel like he would have cut the angle out to try and get a shot 1-on-1, and the fact he looked so composed and he looked relaxed, and it's a friendly, so we're not going to kind of over cook the goose or whatever the phrase is. But I've never heard of that phrase in my life. But
I like it, but you don't want an overcooked goose, no way.
Exactly. But no, I just think I thought it was really well worked, and Maeda's finish, I thought he missed it as well. I thought he ballooned over the bar, but Celtic go one each. Hatate though, I just want to give my kind of thoughts on him. I thought he was peerless today. I thought he looked like a player, as you said. Like he was peacocking all over the place. He was wanting everything. He wanted the ball all the time. He wanted to direct traffic all the time. He always wanted to be in possession and making things happen. And he always tried to make something happen. There was one or two kind of through balls, defence splitting passes that maybe the runner didn't read, but you could still see the intent. It's always that intent, Barry, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's probably an easy or a lazy comparison to make, but see that all action midfielder, it's just Paul McStay for me. Like, see the sort of classic vision I always see of Paul McStay in my head is the New Year game at Celtic Park in the centenary season where he does the sort of pirouette and plays the ball at Chris Morris.
Yeah.
Like that's what I saw in my head when Hatate played that ball for Abada. Just having the ability to just open up your body and kind of, you're good enough on the ball to play that kind of pass. And as you say, sometimes it doesn't come off, but for this goal, it was excellent. And yeah, he just seemed to be, I don't know, that it was almost as if giving me the ball at all times because he knew he was back home and I think he kind of wanted to show how good he was. So yeah, delighted with his performance, and if we can keep hold of him for this season, I think it could be he could be one hell of a player for us, even more so than he has been in the sort of season and a half that he's had.
Do you think he will stay? Rodgers was saying about he's making noise that he wants him to stay, and Rio was talking at that kind of, they did the wee interview thing yesterday, and he was talking about essentially, I want to play in the Champions League, and I want to do X and Y. You think he will stay? What's your percentage say?
Yeah, I think he would, and I think the noises coming out of the club are good, as you say, from him. So maybe 65-70% chance that he'll stay, and if he does, it'll be brilliant for us. Because again, one thing that Rodgers was good at was really improving Stuart Armstrong the last time. I think one thing Hatate maybe could add more to his game is goals. And as we say, Rodgers is probably the perfect guy to do that for us. So if he stays, I think he could really have a sort of player of the year type season, God willing. Yeah,
absolutely. Celtic going forward looked great. I thought, as soon as we kind of got on the front foot and we were, putting them on the back foot, our wide players, Abada, Haksabanovic and O'Reilly maybe didn't shine as much as some of the other key players, but that's fine. I thought they did their job as well as they need to. First game back pre-season. I think the pressure's on Haksabanovic to do something. People are really expecting things. But he was functional without necessarily being extravagantly exciting, but he was functional and he spread the play about pretty well.
Definitely, and the strength of his game, I think, has been in tight spaces and sort of one-touch 1-2s and stuff like that, which I thought he did well. Him and Hatate linked up well for a few things, but we're still kind of waiting for him to have a sort of all-encompassing start, because his best moments for Celtic have been off the bench.
Yeah.
So we'll see, and as we say, it's still early doors, but yeah, there's definitely a player, and it's again a player that I think that the manager will like working with, and he'll like working with the manager. So he just needs to kind of keep persevering, because sometimes it feels like he's trying too hard, doesn't it? Because there is that expectation that he might just be an impact player from the bench, but fingers crossed that the more minutes he gets, then he'll start to have more of an impact.
Celtic were consistently playing out from the back throughout this game. We were okay when we were doing that. I felt defensively the issues came from balls in behind, being caught a little bit static. Greg Taylor was caught a couple of times. Yeah. But balls into the box, we weren't dealing with them particularly well. As great as we were going forward at the back, again, it's the first game of pre-season, so no one's getting kind of overly kind of criticised, but there were some issues, and a lot of that's to do with the fact maybe it's a makeshift backline as well. What's your thoughts?
Definitely. It's funny actually because one of my friends who wasn't able to see the game saying how we're looking, and without even thinking it, I'd said great going forward, pretty ropey at the back, and I was like, geez, that's an evergreen comment for my whole Celtic supporting life.
Yeah, exactly.
Really good going forward, leaves the door open at the back. But yeah, it was quite frustrating. You mentioned Taylor there. If you were just watching that and you hadn't had knowledge of the Celtic backline, you would probably think that Taylor was the one who was the makeshift fullback rather than Iwata.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was just by coincidence or whatever, but that ball in behind, sort of in between the centre half and the fullback caused us a lot of problems. So I don't know. I think maybe we've been speaking about priority signings, and I think maybe another centre half and a fullback would definitely be up there now, because time and time again we were getting carved open, and that was even we were facing the same problems both halves, even with the different personnel. So I don't know if it maybe was a system thing, or maybe just it's just the way that the opposition played, but it was a worry, because I think we'd certainly improved towards the end of Ange's tenure with crosses into the box and stuff like that. So it is a worry, and I'm sure that's something that the coaches will want to address ASAP.
Yeah, absolutely. 20th minute, Celtic go 2-1 up. There's a build-up on our left-hand side. Haksabanovic keeping the ball nice and tight. Plays it out to McGregor. McGregor pays it out to Hatate. Again, it's that same link-up with as soon as the ball gets to Abada, he puts a good ball into the box, and Maeda makes it 2-0. And great, well-worked. The thing about our goals that we scored today, really well-worked. The goals that we conceded, pretty cheap. But yeah, what was your make? With Celtic going 2-1 up, 20 minutes, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I love those types of goals, and it's the type of goals we scored a lot under Ange, so it's good to see that it's still been kept up. But I love that sort of working the ball sides from, as you say, from the left-hand side into the centre. And the three players who linked up for the first goal, Hatate to Abada to Dyson, and it was great to see. It's one of those goals where we move it so quickly that the opposition probably know what we're going to do, but because we do it so quickly, that they've got no sort of resistance to it. And delighted for Dyson back in his former stadium, because he really, again, similar to Hatate, playing in his native country, he looked like he was wanting to put on a show, and boy did he. And good finish, and great to see him get his goal, but also another good assist for Abada, because I think that will boost his confidence too. Yeah,
and I think, assist for Abada will boost his confidence, but Maeda scoring those goals in those positions, finishing them off, which is something we've maybe criticised him in the past. Again, even just to get goals in pre-season, just to kind of get him in that mindset of scoring goals is really important, because I think after today you look at this and you think Maeda might be in the mix for the second choice striker. You've got Kyogo and you've got O, and O's still very raw, and I think he's got different attributes that can absolutely be utilised. Kyogo's your number one. I'm not saying Maeda's going to start on the left, or he's going to usurp Kyogo, but I think Rodgers looks at him and thinks, there's a lot to work with here.
Yeah, I think it's a clever move to do that, because we've said in various pods that if you are going to bring in a sort of third choice striker or someone to challenge O and Kyogo in the striking department, it's either going to be like an up and coming youngster or maybe a striker on the way down. But straight away from, I think it was even before we played in Portugal, Rodgers made the point that he could see Dyson through the middle. And I know he plays that for a lot of people, sort of scoffed, probably myself included, thought, I don't know about that. But the fact that he's given him the chance today, and he said that he wanted to add more goals to his game, so he did that perfectly. And it was good to see him making those runs, because you can see that it isn't alien to him, because, as I say, he's a sort of focal point for Japan through the middle, isn't he? But it's good to know that maybe we could sort of build him up to be that backup to Kyogo. And if we can get him more clinical, then he'll certainly get enough chances to put at least some of them away. So encouraging to see that you don't always have to go out and buy. You can sort of remold someone within the squad, and it's always good to see that.
This game really was just hundreds of goals, and it's that kind of double tap thing, where we go 2-1 up, and then 3 minutes later we concede. I would potentially argue that, and I know we conceded a lot of terrible goals in this game, but I'd say this is maybe the worst that we conceded just in regards to how we're set up. We're set up, they're playing on our right-hand side, so on their left-hand side, our right-hand side where they've got the ball, and it really is one ball. We're all kind of set up in a defensive motion, and it's one ball through that takes out everybody, and the guy runs in behind Greg Taylor, and he scores the goal to make it 2 each. Really frustrating goal to lose that one. This is the one goal where I'm like, that's more worrying than some of the other individual mistakes. Just a daft conceding because it's pre-season. This felt a little bit more like you've been carved open.
Yeah, and I think see when you see the replay from the camera behind the goal, Taylor just has no idea he's there, because you see, I think you can read Taylor saying, "Oh fuck," when he realises that the guy's there. I'm sure he says something like that. And the look of horror in his face. So yeah, again, doesn't look great. I'm sort of encouraged by the thought that he was so disappointed that he was there, because hopefully when it comes to meaningful games he'll be more switched on. But yeah, just a simple goal, and it goes back to the point you made that we really, our goals were out of our craft and our guile, sort of goals from the training pitch, whereas theirs was just like us. We switched off and they just had kind of tapping at the back of the net. And yeah, it is a worry, because Taylor was one of our best players, and I know that there has always been question marks about him defensively, but it seemed today that a lot of their joy was coming from his side. So yeah, I think we definitely need reinforcements in there, because if Taylor's going to be the first choice, I'd like someone to challenge him, because Bernabe,
he ain't it, brother.
Yeah, while he looked good against Portimonense, or were they 4th division Portuguese team?
Yeah.
I want to like him because the whole Argentina thing, and I just like the idea of us having Argentinian marauding fullback, but he's not the answer either. So there's plenty of sort of food for thought in the fullback department, because of... Here's a question I was thinking about you. I don't think we played inverted too much today, did you?
No.
Fullbacks?
There was a couple of situations where I thought Taylor kind of pushed in and he kind of get caught out.
Yeah.
I don't think Iwata played that sort of role. Maybe they tucked in, certainly,
yeah.
But it wasn't in the same sort of style as an Ange Postecoglou team, certainly.
Yeah, and as we've all said, that's where Taylor excelled. So I do feel for him if that's going to be taken away from him, that the thing that he can really add to the team. But it was a bit of a worry. But a caveat, all of these sort of issues with it is pre-season, but you have to learn from them, is what I would say.
What did you make of Iwata, fullback?
I thought he looked okay. I think I was talking to Callum Gordon about this. I think he has played that role before a while ago. I don't even think it was for Yokohama. I think it was maybe the team before them. But he looked like someone who had played the role before, because he was supporting Abada going on the outside, going inside at times as well. So I think, again, it'll be difficult to buy someone in, because I think Alistair Johnson is clearly first choice as it stands, and then Ralston is going to be thereabouts as a squad player. So again, it goes back to that point: if we can find someone in the squad who is able to fill in, then all well and good. But I was quite enthused by him. Thought he did quite well.
Would you not be quite worried going to Ibrox with Tony Ralston or Iwata at fullback? And I'm not saying for like one-off game. I'm just trying to think about those one-off games. I don't have an issue with most games. Tynecastle, Ibrox, Pittodrie.
Yeah.
Maybe Easter Road even is the 3-4 games where I would say you need to be at your best. You really need to do, because all those teams in those stadiums, obviously Rangers being probably our biggest challengers next season, you're going to be under pressure in a way you aren't anywhere else. And I do just wonder, Anthony Ralston's had a lot of injuries last season as well, and he's injured again. I just wonder if Rodgers will look at that and think to himself, Iwata's got a lot of qualities, but maybe just in that position. I don't know. This squad, the situation we're in with some of the squad is just kind of like stick or twist. It's a bit odd, isn't it, Barry?
It is, yeah, because suppose in an ideal world, you go out and buy someone who's better than Alistair Johnson. I know that's
absolutely
difficult because I thought he was brilliant for us. But whether that happens or not, because I think otherwise it's going to have to be a youngster who is going to have to appreciate that they won't play every week and they'll be given minutes when they can, or a short-term deal for someone who's maybe out of contract, which is never great. So I totally take what you're saying, because particularly see when you're a fullback and you're in a stadium that majority of it is screaming for your blood, it can be a very unforgiving place. And we've seen people who have played at the top level who have crumbled in those fixtures as well. So it is a worry. But I suppose the only way to kind of get them ready for games like that is to keep playing them there. And we might be forced to do that unless we do bring someone in.
Yeah. We take the lead towards the end, but there was a couple of points I want to highlight. McGregor, 34th minute, Callum McGregor and Matt O'Reilly kind of combined to win the ball back, and they pass the ball to Maeda, who has this lob from about just inside in their half, and it was really, really unlucky. Actually led to a corner. But this is the whole thing about, like, he seems to be so switched on just now, and I don't know if he's been kind of told, look, you know, here's what we need from you in this position. We want you to be aware of your surroundings. Not because there has been times in the past where Maeda would just put his head down and run. Whereas maybe this is just a one-off game because he has a little bit more focus because it is, you know, his home country and stuff. But like, he just seemed a little bit more head up, and a lot sharper. Yeah,
the confidence to take that shot from that distance was great to see, because although it did end up wide, it was. I think back to games where it maybe been too much for him, and sometimes he can't make a 5-yard pass or whatever. But to have him that confidence, and I know he spoke last season about how much Harry Kewell's improved his game, and if he's going to get benefit from sort of one-to-one coaching from Rodgers or Rodgers' staff as well, it can only be a good thing for him. But no, delighted to see him in that form, because he did look like the main man, and it's funny, I think when he went off, it kind of coincided with us kind of waning a wee bit. So, no, delighted to see him in that form, and long may it continue.
36th minute, there's another chance for Yokohama. Again, it comes down our left-hand side where there's a ball put in, and the striker's kind of... He tries an initial lob, and Joe Hart does well to kind of block that, absolutely. But then the ball breaks to the striker, and I don't know what he's doing.
Tries another lob.
He tries another lob. Like, he's like 2 yards out and he tries this lob and it goes about 8 yards in the air. But again, just worrying signs from balls in from wide positions and kind of through balls that we just seemed a little bit susceptible to that today.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there was one maybe just before that as well where McGregor had a short back pass.
Yes.
And Hart makes a good save. So, yeah, I think that'll be the one thing that the sort of management team will have an eye on. Like, we can't keep gifting chances to teams like this, because they scored 6 and it could have been 8 or 9 with those kind of mistakes that they made, and there's none really that they kind of carved us open. It was more mistake from us. So yeah, that's the major takeaway. Not to jump too far ahead, but the major takeaway from me is that we need to smarten up our game at the back.
But we do go 3-2 in at half time. Hatate, I've just put strong in capitals letters. You know, very, you know, New Japan Pro Wrestling strong style. Unbelievable. He passes the ball into McGregor. It's just this overlap that's happening on that right hand side for a lot of the game, where you've got Abada and then you've got Iwata, or you've got Iwata inside or Hatate inside and Abada on the outside. This goal is very similar to the goal I thought when we made it 2-1. McGregor gets the ball, puts out to Abada puts out wide to Iwata puts it in, and it's another great finish from Maeda. Good to see Iwata getting an assist to add to that right hand side, which looked a lot stronger than the left hand side today. 3-2 half time. Thoughts on the goal and thoughts going into half time?
Yeah, another well worked goal, and I think that's maybe the benefit of having someone so comfortable on the ball, playing that makeshift right back role, because there was no panic. It was a lovely sort of weighted pass in for Maeda to score, and yeah, it was just a very Celtic of the last 2 years type goal.
Yeah.
And going in at half time, delighted to be leading, delighted for Dyson. Lots to be excited about with the performance of Hatate, I thought. So yeah, a good workout in the first half, and it was there when I kind of made that note about almost a perfect team for us to play at this stage of the season because of the way that they played, very similar to ourselves. But you made the point about us looking quite comfortable playing at the back, and I think maybe having that test of you just have to play it quickly. I thought Kobayashi used the ball well. Hart, even though he had that mistake, I thought he was quite prompt with his passing out from the back to the full back and centre half. So all in all, a really enjoyable first half, and it felt like it didn't feel like a pre-season friendly, the sort of standard of play, I thought.
It felt competitive, you know, and people always talk about the idea of like the football getting smaller and the idea that maybe European competitions or Asian club competitions and all that, like they might kind of amalgamate together and stuff. And I just loved this today.
Yeah.
You mentioned like the 2002 World Cup and all that. Like, I just think how it looks, the style of play, the fans and everything, the fact we're on the other side of the world, and I just loved a lot of it. And it's interesting to see how Europe, with everything with the Saudi League and all that, gates might open up in regards to teams playing in different kind of confederations and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you compare that to, I think I did one of the reactions last season, but it was quite a high score to go to Banica Strava or something like that, where it was, I think it was maybe their centenary, and there was a bit of an atmosphere, but it was nowhere near that today. And I think it is just because it's all new, and it did evoke memories of that World Cup because of the sort of how grand the stadium was and the sort of distance behind the goals. But no, it was a really, really enjoyable spectacle. It actually reminded me of, like, when we used to play Pro Evo. It was like a...
Look, I didn't want to say it. I was going to say it just reminded me of playing Pro Ev and the old signs with the play and the fans, and it was like, run team, run, go team, go, and all that. But yeah, just class, man.
Brilliant. For the sort of generation of like others, it was, you even had the sort of chimes, see the sort of chimes music in the back. Hi. I'm going to try and dig that out and play it somehow.
Great stuff. We're going at halftime. The only sub when we came out at halftime, which I was surprised, I thought there would have been a couple more subs, but the only sub was Joe Hart came off and Sigrist came on. Yokohama straight off the bat missed a gilt-edged chance. Talk us through it, Barry.
It was just the same issues, wasn't it, that we spoke about in the first half? That sort of ball in, and it was a sitter from their striker, yards out, and it was just more of concerns if we haven't tightened up from the chances that they were creating in the first half, and we got away with that one because I think if maybe a few minutes later into the half and their striker was more alive after half time, then we could have found ourselves sort of pegged back. And yeah, it's the amount of times that they created that similar chance was probably between 10 and 15, I would say, which is a worry because you would think that our defence would think, all right, we're going to do it again, so we need to be on it. But again, and maybe that will come with fitness, but alarm bells were ringing for me when they missed that chance. Yeah,
they do go on to equalise in the 58th minute, but there was a really nice passage of play from Celtic, and Callum McGregor with this weird kind of whipped over ball. He sees a great run from Maeda and he hits this kind of weird bizarre ball over, but it goes perfectly to Maeda. It's just out of his reach. I think he wanted to volley. He wanted it to come across him so he could volley it, but it kind of just bounces awkwardly. But the 58th minute, Starboy, what are you doing? Jeez. Carol Starfelt under absolutely no pressure whatsoever. I don't even know what he was doing. I think he was inviting the press on to then try and make the pass, and he just then he tries to hit it back. He's caught out and it breaks for their striker, and he's one-on-one and he makes it 3 each Lopez. Again, Barry, individual errors, you'd like to just clock it up to pre-season.
Yeah, I don't think we've kind of mentioned Starfelt too much so far, but I thought he looked very ropey. And I know that it's maybe a sort of tired excuse, but his best games in a Celtic shirt have been beside Cameron Carter-Vickers. But then there's only so long you can say that because he needs to sort of look after his own performances, doesn't he, when CCV's not there? And I don't think he was very composed at all, even out with this mistake throughout the whole game. And yeah, as you say, two minds whether to let the striker come onto him, and then he kind of does it left-footed and high, which gives himself virtually no chance of getting back to it because of the weight he puts on it, and an easy finish for the Yokohama striker. But yeah, I really like Starfelt, and I think we all do on the Cynic, but sometimes he makes mistakes like that, which really play into the people who don't rate him. I know my dad's not his biggest fan, and it's kind of one as well. Well, there you go. How are you going to defend him now?
I know.
I was well, if he can't defend himself now, look at that.
Exactly.
No, yeah, so it is a worry because he does always sort of have that sort of brain fart in him.
Yeah, I know. So I mean, that was 3 each, and again, it's the whole thing of getting pegged back when you just kind of get ahead. But unfortunately, Kobayashi goes off in the 60th minute. The kind of what it looked like, I think the commentators, Peter Grant was saying it didn't look too bad because he seemed to indicate that he seemed to be okay, but it's best to come off at this point of view. Stephen Welsh came on. Again, Stephen Welsh is someone that's been linked away for a number of months. It's kind of went quiet a little bit. What's your thoughts on that kind of Welsh coming? You would imagine Welsh would move on, but then again, maybe not.
Yeah, I suppose everyone's sort of given a clean slate, aren't they, when you change manager? And that's maybe why there has been a lack of maybe ins and outs, because the manager wants to sort of see what he's got there. Because I always think back to, going off on a tangent here, but I remember when John Barnes was the manager and he went out and spent $6 million on Berkovic, and I think he's since said, and years later, that if he'd realised how good Moravcik was, he wouldn't have had to buy him.
Yeah.
And I'm not to say that Welsh is at that level, but I just mean in terms of looking at your squad, sometimes there's someone there who you can develop, or someone who is a talent, and without giving them the opportunity to look at them, then you might sort of make a wrong move. But I thought Welsh was aggressive when he came on, and I know it's kind of hard to say when you go on to concede 3 more goals, but I thought he looked okay, but you would still want better there. I made that point earlier. I think potentially you're looking for someone who's an upgrade in Starfelt, and then Starfelt becomes your backup. Whether he likes that or not, I don't know. But I think for Celtic to sort of prosper, the way to improve is make your players who have served you well, they become the backups rather than signing squad players. So it'll be interesting to see what Rodgers does, because CCV for me is by far our best defender. While I like Starfelt, I think we could probably upgrade there, and I hope that we do.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yokohama in the second half seemed to press a lot higher up as well. Specifically, the kind of from this point on, I've just taken out pressing very, very high. 65th minute, it becomes 4-3. Again, this is another really poor goal. I think this comes from breakout from a corner, and then it's on our left-hand side, their right-hand side. Again, it's a defence position, and there's just a ball put through, and there's a runner from midfield, and he's not tracked at all, and he takes a touch, and he's one-on-one, and he just... Again, this was a really bad goal to lose, Barry.
Yeah, it looked like Celtic were trying to play an offside trap. And there was a few dubious offside calls today.
Maeda might
have questioned whether we had any assistant referees or linesmen in old money. But yeah, again, on the eye, you kind of grimace, don't you, when you see the replay? Because I think when you see it in real time, you think, oh, what's happened here? But yeah, there's no one tracking the runner. Everyone's sort of acres apart from each other, which you don't want your back four to be, and the midfield weren't really supporting either. So again, a horrific goal to concede. And I suppose, to put a positive spin on it, you're always looking at, I suppose, when they watch the tapes back, there is obvious things now that think, right, we need to put that right. So it's better to learn it at this stage than 2 or 3 weeks into the season. We've got difficult away games coming up in Champions League caught in the heels of that. So yeah, plenty of things for the coaches to really get into the players that they need to improve upon. And
this is the thing, Celtic could have played weaker opposition in a more controlled environment that would have allowed them to win. It's the whole thing about, when you've got a new prize fighter and you want to, give him a couple of easy fights. So you line up a couple of bums who he's going to knock out. Celtic could have done. Peter Grant was talking about the old games against the German sides when we used to rattle them like 12-0 and all that. and that does nothing for nobody.
No.
And this is where you sharpen up for pre-season.
Definitely, yeah. And I had a chuckle with that, because how often do we talk about that? And a couple of my pals that are subscribers, we were even talking about, was it FC Beatrix or something, one of the teams we played? I'm sure it was 20 odd. Because I think it was earlier, that might have been last night or the
Bayern
night
Munich.
before, that Bayern Munich 27-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's obviously it's a good laugh and it's good to get confidence up, but I think if you want to really improve, then you have to test yourself. And yeah, that was a good workout from that respect, because sometimes you go on these tours and it's all just a bit of fun for the marketing side of the club, but I think it was a well-selected team to play because of how impressive they were, I thought. Yeah,
so we're 4-3 down, but, we're still, it's a good competitive game. But on the 66th minute, Celtic make a raft of substitutions. I'll go through them in just a moment. And the substitutions, Barry, kind of killed the game off a little bit, didn't they?
They did, yeah. And that's always a worry when you make changes like that. And I suppose I was quite sort of heartened to see that we didn't make them too early. I suppose Rodgers wanted to see if they could get 60 odd minutes out of the players that had played. But as soon as you see that, it's very rare that you make that amount of changes and it goes in your favour, especially against a team who are so far into their season, like Yokohama are. Because I know they made changes as well, but again, these players will be substitutes, have been playing as well. So, yeah. Although we were saying we don't put too much into pre-season friendlies, your heart kind of sinks a wee bit because you think, this game's going to get away from us here.
Yeah. Here are the subs. So coming off was Starfelt, Taylor, Iwata, McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate, Haksabanovic, Maeda and Abada. And coming on for them were Bernaby, Scales, McPherson, Turnbull, Kelly, Forrest, Summers, Kyogo and O. So you've got guys like Kelly, obviously Ben Summers took part a couple of games last season, but not many. You get McPherson and Kelly, who are young players who, I don't know if it's one of those things where the club has, said to Brendan Rodgers, can you take these guys and run them through through the test to see if they've got anything, or we'll put them back in the B team, or whether it is a case of these are special boys that we want to kind of develop up. So, Celtic for 15, 16 minutes play pretty well. Some rocky moments at the start, but they start to put together some really good stuff. 80th minute, we should have equalised, or we should have had a penalty. An incredible through ball from David Turnbull. We have been quick to maybe criticise some of the attributes of his game that he doesn't quite come up to scratch from our point of view, but you can't deny his his vision and his technical ability. An incredible through ball that releases James Forrest. Forrest delivers an excellent ball to O, and O seems to be bundled over, but there's no penalty. What did you make of that passage of play, Barry?
Yeah, just when got in my notes here that if Hatate plays that pass, that's a kind of clip that would be clipped and you would see it all over Twitter.
Yeah.
You probably won't see anything like that for Turnbull, which is a shame in a way. But I don't think I saw a replay of the O getting bundled over.
I know they didn't show one, though.
Didn't show one. Because it did look like it, and Peter Grant very much laboured the point. Why would he go down if there wasn't a foul? But it was good to see that sort of link-up play, because I think they all did well. Obviously, you're hoping O would put it away, but from what I saw, it looked like he would bundled over. But that pass was incredible, and it's good to see that Turnbull still got that in his locker. And his other strength, we'll mention slightly later as well. Yeah.
Again, as we say, I'll get your thoughts on some of the players' kind of performance, but we can see two more goals, 84th and the 88th minute. To make it 5-3, there's slow build up on our left hand side, and again, this one's a back post header. So they've got the ball and they're kind of working it on our left hand side, their right hand side. A ball's delivered, like Barry, like you've been saying this whole podcast. The same sort of ball in has been causing us problems. It was young McPherson who couldn't who didn't see the guy over his shoulder. Siegrist, I don't know, just make an attempt, I guess. I don't know.
His hands were sort of by his side, weren't they? Like,
it was very tight, I don't know. But that made it 5-3, and then 60 on the 88th minute. A build up from their back line, their keeper rolls it out, and it's a pretty well worked goal. They break in behind, and they've just got an overload in the middle, and the ball is cut back, very pro-Ev, cut back,
Yes.
and then just sweeped in to make it 6-3. What do you make of those 2 goals, Barry?
Just avoidable, I think. I suppose for the 6th goal, as you say, seeming the ball is whipped back that quickly, and the guy did get quite a lot on it. Sometimes it's in the back of the net before you can even do anything, so I'll maybe give Siegrist a bit of leeway with that. But yeah, just poor to see, and it's a shame because obviously you do have the young full-back playing, but totally avoidable. I think all of their goals were. Maybe the 5th one was well worked, but yeah. One thing that I did note, see, just on the where we thought all was fouled, had a chuckle at the commentator saying, surely John Beaton's not in Japan. I was like, oh, you might be in trouble for that. I was applauding. I thought, quite right.
Yeah, I'm sure he's thinking, they're not going to listen to this.
Nobody's watching this.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that, with such young, kind of inexperienced guys, even guys like Scales haven't played a lot for Celtic. The back line was, Scales and Stephen Welsh with McPherson and
Bernabe. Oh, Jesus.
Bernabe. It's a young...
He got roasted, didn't he? Bernabe got roasted by that right winger time and time again.
Bernabe... I mean, I wouldn't be keen to go into a game where he's has to play left back, as in, there's a massive difference between, one of the smaller teams in the Scottish Premiership at Celtic Park. There's a big difference between them and going to Tynecastle, going to Pittodrie, even playing against these. He just, within a year, he doesn't look like he's got consistent, like he's got that consistency.
No, and I was trying to think, it's hard to remember where, if you were to, so say you had your first starting 10 and then Taylor was injured and he came in, it's hard to remember a time where you'd be so worried about not being able to carry one player compared to him, because as you say, I think majority of the teams maybe out with the top 4, you could get away with it at Celtic Park, but even going to Hibs away or even places like St Mirren, I think you would have a worry about Bernabe, and that's not good enough for someone to be paid almost £4 million for. So I think there is going to have to be a decision made with him. And for me, it's kind of loan back to Argentina and we never see him again type scenario.
Yeah.
Essentially, we have to write off the £4 million.
See something like in I'm going to say this, and people are probably going to completely disagree with that, and that's fine. We've got a quota for the Champions League where we need to have homegrown players and players that are essentially trained by, in Scotland and all that. See that Max Johnson? He's a fullback who you could get for free and you could bring in, and would it be worse than Bernabe? Probably not. Like, just in terms of playing the fullback, I'm not, Bernabe's probably a better player overall. I'm just trying to think outside the box about long term, but also ticking some of these boxes in regards to homegrown and, that I want an improvement. I want Champions League level quality all over the pitch. So the fact I've mentioned someone like Max Johnson, who is going to European club sort of thing, is probably, people will be like, lot of shite, don't say that, that's downsizing and all that and not good enough. And maybe they are right, but Bernabe's just not shown enough for me.
No.
Going forward or at the back now.
No, definitely not. And we've had the conversation before about Doig, haven't we?
Yeah.
Where we could have picked him up for cheaper than we got for Bernabe. And again, I think he has improved a lot playing in Italy.
Signing for Torino.
Yeah. So there is, sometimes it does seem like the exotic player captures our fancy more. And I don't know if this has been verified or not, but I've heard that it was actually Ange, who I think Ange had watched Australian under-21s or something, and Bernabe was the standout, so he'd always kind of tracked him. So we'll blame Ange for Bernabe signing. We haven't stuck the boot into Ange today, so we'll blame him for Bernabe.
100%. Ange Postecoglou, this is all your fault. But just to finish off the game on a positive note, David Turnbull, boom, beautiful, makes it 6-4. Celtic, after the kind of, Celtic weren't terrible. I just want to make that clear. Like, it's not like all these substitutes came on and they were terrible. It just kind of broke the game up a little bit in terms of cohesion. But we created some opportunities. I thought we played some good balls. I think, most of these players probably aren't going to play. When I say most of these players, I mean Bernaby, Scales, McPherson, Kelly, Summers aren't going to play consistently next season. They might supplement the squad now and then, but I thought they had a good show themselves. Kyogo was played a little bit deeper. O was playing up front, but I just want to make that point that Celtic weren't terrible. The goals we conceded were pretty poor. But what did you make of Celtic's fourth goal from David Turnbull?
Just before I come on to that, just a shout for Daniel Kelly. I think, see the physicality of him for a 17-year-old. Like that's often been it's the Strachan, wasn't it? The Strachan horror show when he spoke about that aspect of it. But he looked very much a man beyond his years in terms of physicality, and he's one that I know the commentators said they've got high hopes for. So encouraging for him to see. So we might see him sort of supplement the squad. And there was a bit out wide where Ben Summers had a little bit of skill to beat a man as well on the touchline. But onto Turnbull's goal, it was a great strike, and not to say that it righted the wrongs of how we'd played, but it'd be hard pushed not to take joy out of a goal like that, because it's the sort of key strength of David Turnbull and the way he strikes it, that it stayed hit, to use a horrible football cliche. But no, delighted for him, and it kind of gave us a wee bit of a positive end to the game. And lots. I think there's lots to take from it, both positively and negatively, and that's all you can ask for in your first pre-season friendly. Yeah,
absolutely. I think before Turnbull hit the ball, like, great technique. There was some nice interplay out wide. Kyogo goes for the ball. The ball's played across. He goes for it and he gets tackled. It kind of bounces about a little bit, but Turnbull just turns and rattles it, but doesn't rattle it like a toe bash. He just, like, the technique to place it almost was a slight deflection, but really great to see. I thought Turnbull came across very well today. Some two or three good passes. That through ball was exceptional. But the game finished 6-4 to Celtic. It was 2 teams.
6-4 to Yokohama.
Jesus. 6-4 to Yokohama. But, two Celtic teams, essentially, 22 players used. Barry, your kind of final thoughts on the game overall, and any kind of things you can take away from it?
Overall, a good run out, I think. High intensity. I think the heat probably added to the sort of helping sort of expedite the fitness levels. I think there was lots to be positive about. Dyson sort of stole the show. I think my main takeaway would be that we might have found our backup, or certainly our third striker. Not to say that he'll play there every week, but sort of promoting from within. And hopefully it's not a big if Rio Hatate is to stay, I think we could witness like a season for the ages from him. I think Callum spoke a couple of weeks ago about when players have that season where they're playing like you think, right, he's too good for us now. I know Van Dijk had it.
Yeah.
Eddie. I think Hatate has that ability now. Because as we say, like, it's the first real pre-season game of the year, and if he's hitting those levels already when he's still got 2.5 weeks before we play competitively, I think everything crossed that if he stays, he could be our main man and bring it on. And the negative sides, as we've mentioned throughout the podcast, the defending criminal at times, a real worry. I think it's okay to say that because we have been positive, but you really need to tighten up your game. And I think the other sort of glaring thing for me is that we need a goalkeeper to come in and be our number one.
Absolutely. All great points. I agree with all of them. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an enjoyable game of football. I thought we were really good going forward. I thought at times in the back we were left wanting. And I think it's more a case of we'll have confirmed some of Brendan Rodgers' thoughts rather than, all of a sudden he's got all these questions. I think he would have realised everything that's kind of all the answers that would require to kind of go up a level next season. So there's plenty there. Barry?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I don't think there'll be anything there that's completely shocked him. Because he would have known, and he made the point that he watched virtually every Celtic game last season. But yeah, it's just Celtic in a nutshell, and I know I've just been flippant earlier, but sort of evergreen comment, breathtaking going forward. and gasping at the back. Basically, that could be on Celtic's vision statement or whatever, mission statement.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, this has been an absolute joy. We'll have the weekend update on Friday as well. But Barry Gallagher, thank you, sir. It's, Celtic are back and we're ready to rock.
Delighted, mate, and bring on the new season. From
Barry Gallagher, from myself, Chris Gallagher, this has been the reaction to Celtic 4, Yokohama 6. Let's get cooking. We'll speak to you down the road.